My name is Adam Krieger. I'm with Warren Township Youth and Family Services, and I would like to welcome you to this evening's presentation. Now, this is a little bit of a switch up or a little bit of a change for us. I know you're often, those of you watching, may be used to Warren Township Youth and Family Services doing presentations on such subjects as parenting, mental health issues, school-related issues. But the truth is, we actually have a long history of also doing workshops around legal and financial issues that people within our community are dealing with. We have actually had a long relationship going back to the recession of 2008, actually, with counseling services, with consumer credit counseling services. And over the years, we have done this workshop on bankruptcy on a number of occasions. Sadly, we are going through another challenging time. And so once again, we feel the need, and we're seeing a lot of our clients dealing with financial issues. And so while it's a challenging time, and we know that information is always important, and we know that people having good information on bankruptcy process is invaluable if it's something that you're having to consider. So we want to welcome everybody. And then tonight's workshop, of course, is titled The Ins and Outs of Personal Bankruptcy. And so what we'll do is in a moment here, I'll introduce our speaker. Please feel free to ask questions. The best way to ask questions is through the chat. And in some cases, it might be something I can answer quickly. If not, our presenter will take moments throughout the presentation to answer any questions that you have. So with no further ado, I'd like to go ahead and present Donna Rasmussen, who is the Financial Literacy Educator with Consumer Credit Counseling Services of Northern Illinois. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure to be here. We're glad to be back in Warren Township, helping people take care of their finances. And so I am the Financial Literacy Educator at Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Northern Illinois. We are a community agency. We are not-for-profit. We've been in Woodstock for 38 years, helping people learn how to budget their money and take control of their money and not let their money control them. We have offices in Woodstock in McHenry County. We have an office in Elgin in Kane County. And in Lake County, we have an office in Fox Lake. So if anybody who's participating decides that they would like to speak with a counselor about whether it's credit counseling or housing counseling, we have certified credit and housing counselors available all the time, all day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, and on Saturdays, 9 to noon. And now it's super easy to meet with a counselor because we do everything over the phone. We have limited amount of Zoom meetings. We're trying to get everybody up and trained and able to do a Zoom meeting with our clients who are interested in learning about budgeting and taking care of their finances. But you just need to call our agency. I'm going to give you all the information as we go through the workshop. But if you wanted to write it down right now, our number is 815-575, that's my personal phone number, 815-338-5757. And you just call in and just say that you were at a workshop, you're interested in learning about budgeting your money, and our wonderful women at the front desk, they can take it and run with it and get you set up with a counselor. So right now we're going to get started. This PowerPoint is pretty current. It's what we've been using since COVID started. We've updated a little bit, but anytime you have questions, I'm going to be stopping periodically. I cannot see the chat box, so when I stop, if there is a question, Adam is going to let me know that there's someone asking a question, so you can shout out to whenever you need to. Okay, so today we're going to talk about two types of personal bankruptcy. We're going to talk about Chapter 7 and Chapter 13, the most two common kinds of personal bankruptcy. We're going to talk about the consequences, and we're also going to talk about alternatives to bankruptcy, because some people, most people feel like they get their, finances are out of control. There's been a change in income and change in expenses, and they just feel like they can't manage it. And the first thing they do is think about filing bankruptcy. But we have some other alternatives that might be available. So I just also want you to know that I am not a lawyer, and none of us are here. We do not provide legal advice, but we can give you information about the options that you have uh, in addition to or instead of bankruptcy. Okay. So Chapter 7 is the most common type of bankruptcy. This is where it is all of your debt is totally liquidated. So you always hear about stores filing liquidation bankruptcy and like big companies, and that means everything is liquidated and they start from scratch. And that is what happens here in personal bankruptcy as well. The filer has to surrender most assets, and there is a representative from the court that will assist with doing that, taking care of all your assets, figuring out what everything's worth, liquidating them, and trying to pay off as many of your creditors as possible. So some things that happen after you file, and sometimes these things might not happen right away, so you might have to be a little patient. I know people that are filing bankruptcy are having phone calls from creditors constantly. You may not answer your phone. The mail, you may not want to check the mail because all of these collection letters are coming. But after you file bankruptcy, when you do that initial filing, all collection attempts come to a halt. They stop. So if you file and on Friday and then on next Wednesday, you're still getting collection calls, it doesn't mean that people are like breaking the law and not following the rules. It takes time for paperwork to get processed and filed and creditors to be notified. So as soon as a creditor is notified, they cannot collect, they cannot call and attempt to collect the debt from you, and no new wage garnishments can be attached. So if you are in collection and you're afraid of getting a wage garnishment, if you haven't had it by the time you file, it cannot happen because of that filing rule. And no lawsuits can be initiated by any creditor after filing. Okay, so sometimes this is called straight bankruptcy. So you have to find out if you qualify to file these bankruptcies. Not just anybody can file. You have to go through a means test, and you have to take into account all of your income. So they'll look at your income and your expense sheets to determine your eligibility. So if you have a regular job and then maybe you work a little side job on the weekend or at night, if you get spousal support, if you collect SSDI, or you have some kind of a pension, they will look at all of those things and to determine whether or not you're eligible to qualify to file for Chapter 7. So the court is going to consider your property as a way to pay creditors. So by property, I don't just mean like your house or anything, but if you have big collections of, coin collections and stamp collections are the most common things that people talk about. They're not talking about like Pokemon card collections or Beanie Baby collections, but things that really have value. Jewelry, cars, if you have fancy musical instruments. My dad was a musician. He was also an engineer, so he had two different sides of his brain working. But he had this. It's called a vibe. It's like a big xylophone, but it was worth thousands and thousands of dollars. And when we found out how much it was worth after my dad passed away, we were all just shocked. So you may have musical instruments that are worth a lot more than you think, and so those things can be considered as assets that will be sold by the court to pay off creditors. If you have a second home, that is also going to be, you're probably going to have to surrender that home if you have equity in it, and to pay your creditors. So there are some things that are exempt. So if you have a home that you live in and you don't have very much equity in it, but you're making your payments, you may be able to keep that home. You can keep a car. The value might, if you have like a Honda Civic or something, if you have a McLaren or something like that, you're probably going to have to turn that in. But if you have a car that you use to get to and from work, that's going to be considered exempt, and you can keep that. Also, if you have a car and you're making payments on the car, that's what you may get to keep it as long as you continue to make the payments. It's called a reaffirmation agreement. And so that's something that the representative from the court will discuss with you, and it'll all, be placed in writing as part of the Chapter 7 liquidation. Okay, so so there's a lot of terms that you never really hear, except if and when you file bankruptcy. So this is not all of the terms, but these are some of the most common. So filing. When you file, that's doing all the paperwork and submitting it to the court. You'll go before, a judge and file that. Prior to filing, you need to do credit counseling. It's a law. And this has become a law, I think, since the 2008 recession. People would just file bankruptcy and really had no, I want to say training, but they really had no other training in how to budget your money. People did not know, and they filed bankruptcy and they just start all over again with running up the credit cards and not understanding how, income and expenses works and how you need to, manage things. So credit counseling is required before you file. So another thing that happens when you do that credit counseling before you file is you go to a court approved agency, which Consumer Credit Counseling Service is one here in Lake and McHenry and Kane County. It is a court-ordered class, so it is one of the very few things that we charge for. We charge a $50 fee to take that class, and a lot of times people come to us to do that class, and then they realize that, well, I don't have to file bankruptcy. I can do this debt management plan with Consumer Credit Counseling Service, and in the same amount of time that I might be taking to pay off all of my debt, if I'm doing a Chapter 13, I can do the same thing, pay off all my debt with CCCS as assistance, and two things happen that don't happen when you file bankruptcy. So at the end of 3 to 5 years with us, you will not have a bankruptcy judgment on your credit report, because that stays on there for quite a long time. And your credit score continues to increase during that time because you're paying things off in a very methodical and consistent basis. So that's just kind of a side thing. When you come here for counseling before filing bankruptcy, you may leave here not filing for bankruptcy. So you don't have to come here because you're filing bankruptcy. You can come here at any time, and our counselors can teach anyone how to create a budget and stick to it. So back to the filing. So when you file, it initiates what's called an automatic stay. That means creditors have to stop collection actions. It doesn't happen immediately a lot of the time, so you have to be a little bit patient, but it will happen. The next term is the bankruptcy trustee, and that's the representative from the court that I was talking about. They are impartial. They're not working for you, and they're not working for the court. They are strictly there to evaluate the information, and information being your documentation, to make sure that there's nothing fraudulent being submitted to the court. They evaluate your assets and they determine a value for it, and then they disperse the money from those assets to the creditors. They are totally impartial, and they're not, as I said, they're not working for either side. They are just there to take care of the documentation. The 341 meeting of the creditors. The bankruptcy trustee will run this meeting. You must attend this meeting if you are the filer. This is where all the creditors will come, or they'll call in, and the trustee will discuss how much each creditor is going to accept as payment and how much of your assets are going to go to that each creditor. So it's another meeting that you have to attend in addition to that initial filing and then the final discharge. The discharge is when everything, all the boxes are checked, you've liquidated your assets, all that money has been paid to the creditors, everything else is liquidated. You either keep your car and you keep your house, or you've liquidated those things too. But you also have to go to one more class prior to the discharge, and that is a debtor education class. We are a court authorized agency, and so you can come here. It's another class that we charge a small fee for, and this is a class that's meant to help people really reiterate what we talked about in the very beginning, how to manage your funds going forward after your bankruptcy. So if you file a Chapter 17 liquidation, so back in 2008, when people were filing bankruptcy all the time, they would file and then they would file again and file again, and because they had no training and no instruction on how to create a budget. But hopefully this doesn't happen, but if you do file Chapter 7 bankruptcy, you have to wait 8 years before you can file again. So it's not something that you can just do as a means of kind of managing your money that way. Okay, so now we'll talk about Chapter 13. Does anybody have any questions? I can't see if there's any.
At this time, no, there are no questions.
Okay, and I'll keep going. Okay, so Chapter 13. This is the wage earner's bankruptcy. It's sometimes called a straight bankruptcy. The other one is typically the straight bankruptcy, but people will call this one a straight bankruptcy too, but it's the wage earner's bankruptcy. So this is for people whose biggest problem is the creditors wanting the money. It's not the lack of income, it's just not having enough money to pay your creditors. So if you're filing Chapter 13, it's kind of like a reorganization. You know, they figure out how much you owe, and then it's dispersed to you make a payment to the court every month. It's usually an automatic withdrawal from your bank account, and the bankruptcy trustee is going to disperse those funds to the creditors every month. And at the end of 3 to 5 years, they'll all be paid off, and then your bankruptcy will be discharged. So with the Chapter 13, you're able to keep your home as long as you continue to pay your mortgage and it's paid under the settlement plan. So it's another, like we talked about, the reaffirmation agreement. This is kind of the same thing, only because your assets aren't taken to pay off creditors, you're able to keep your home. It also can take 3 to 5 years to resolve. So with any bankruptcy, you're not going to be able to discharge all of your debt. There are some things that are not, never going to be discharged or wiped out. And that is if you have unpaid taxes, if you have a tax lien on your home, or you haven't paid your your personal income taxes, that is not going to be dischargeable. You're still going to continue to owe that. That's a totally different thing. Student loans are not going to be discharged, only under extreme circumstances, and that's a death, someone's diagnosed with a terminal illness, and those kind of things. Student loans will typically never be discharged in a bankruptcy. If you owe alimony or child support, same thing. They're not going to be discharged. A Chapter 13 bankruptcy filing can stop a disclosure or a foreclosure. It's not guaranteed, but it can buy you some time to figure out a way to pay your mortgage if you're behind. Our counselors are HUD certified housing counselors, and they are able to discuss with you ways that you could maybe figure out to pay your mortgage and give you some options if you're struggling with paying your mortgage at this time, you're in default or you're close to being in foreclosure, you can give us a call, and our counselors can help you come up with some more options. So there is also a limit to the amount of unsecured debt, which is credit card debt, and secured debt, like if you have car payments and loan mortgages and stuff. That like if you have I don't know, $300,000 worth of debt, you may not be able to get all of that discharged or paid off through your bankruptcy. So there are eligibility requirements relating to the high limit that you would be able to owe in order to file Chapter 13. Again, just like with Chapter 7, a person who is filing bankruptcy has to receive from an approved agency, we're one of them, within 6 months of filing. So you file, and then you have to come to a bankruptcy workshop, and I teach that. And it's a one-time 2-hour class. You get a certificate, we file the paperwork, we send the paperwork to your lawyer, and then you've satisfied that requirement. So, but if you were planning to file bankruptcy, you're thinking about it, get a lawyer. You can call us ahead of time, and maybe we can help you figure out some options. But if that's what you really feel is the thing that's going to be for you, you really should get a lawyer and try and find a reputable one. So, and then here's some more terms for Chapter 13. A lot of them are the same as with Chapter 7. So you're going to file. So that's doing all the paperwork, bringing in all of your income documentation, turn in all of your debt and expenses, and then there are other fees and costs that you'll have to pay with the bankruptcy. And I don't know what they are, but I can't imagine that I would imagine it's kind of a lot. So you have to provide a list of creditors and all the sources of your income, and the bankruptcy trustee is going to do their due diligence and try and make sure that nothing is fraudulent and that everything is exactly as you stated is. The automatic stay, again, is stopping collection efforts once you file the paperwork. So again, it may not stop right away, but if it doesn't stop right away, I would advise you to maybe contact your lawyer and let them know, hey, it's I filed 6 weeks ago and I'm still getting these calls from Citibank or Wells Fargo or whatever, and they should be able to provide some documentation that will make them stop calling. So this is an interesting thing here. So when someone is filing bankruptcy, if you are if you have a co-signer for a loan, or there are 2 people on a mortgage and only one of them is filing bankruptcy, the co-debtor stay protects anyone who is also obligated on the debt. It keeps them from being charged with a bankruptcy also. Okay, so then the bankruptcy trustee, we've already talked about the 341 meeting of the creditors. And every time I teach this class, I think, what does 341 mean? I don't know. So I'm going to make myself a note to look that up, because I don't know that anybody here knows either. I mean, they might, but I never remember to ask. And then discharge is at the end of your bankruptcy. Your all your debts are discharged, and everything is you're done. You'll get a notification. It'll come in the mail to you. You'll get some paperwork through the court, and then when you look on your credit report, you will see that judgment on your credit report, and that will be there for 7 years. So before doing Chapter 13, especially before during before filing for a Chapter 13. You really should talk to a credit counselor. It doesn't have to be at our agency, but we are a not-for-profit. We have grant funding that pays for all of our credit counseling sessions. So it is free of charge to you because funders have given us money that pay for those sessions. And we might be able to help you figure out a way to get your debts paid back and increase your credit score, keep a Chapter 13 judgment off of your credit report, and probably save you a lot of money in court fees at the same time. Okay. Again, here's some more terms, but that reaffirmation agreement is like if you own a car and you don't want to include it in the Chapter 13, you want to continue to pay that debt rather than have it discharged. You may be able to do this with a credit card if you, I'm not exactly sure how that would work, but I know that when you file a bankruptcy and your credit cards are included, normally you lose the ability to use those cards any longer. Everything gets shut down. Okay. Chapter 13, 3 to 5 years. It can be different for everyone. If you don't have a huge income and you have a lot of debt, it's going to take 5 years. If you have your income is pretty stable and you're able to support your family, and you have you have enough debt that qualifies you, but you're not, it's not like an insurmountable amount, it might take less than 5. So it just depends on how much you owe and how much you make. So here's what I was talking about. The hardship discharge is only available when your failure to complete the planned payment is beyond your control. So again, a death, a terminal illness, I mean, they're legitimately not going to, it's going to be difficult to get a hardship discharge. I personally don't know, haven't heard of anyone getting a hardship discharge any time within the last year. So
Donna,
yes.
I do have a question. Is it okay if I
Sure.
should? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a question, and it goes like this about co-debtor. Can you leave your spouse out of the bankruptcy filing process? That's the question.
I believe you can if there is separate, if there are separate situations like separate credit, separate bank accounts, and then again the co-debtor on like a signer on a mortgage or something would not be responsible for. They wouldn't be held responsible or held accountable for the other person's debt. That's a question for an attorney, but I'm going to ask Myra. She is really well versed in bankruptcy, and I will ask if your spouse can. I know that if you're in a, if it's a significant other or like a parent co-signing for a child, your adult child's car or something like that, that protects them. But I'm not exactly sure. I think a spouse can be omitted or left off of a bankruptcy. I'm going to ask tonight, and I will have that answer for you tomorrow. So, so those are the basics about Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. So now we'll talk a little bit about the consequences to filing bankruptcy. So, it is always, nobody wants to talk about it. A lot of people are embarrassed by it sometimes, but just like with people who have other, credit problems, life happens to people. I mean, this COVID thing has impacted every single one of us in some kind of way. Whether it's we worry more about our money now, maybe our income hasn't really changed, but everybody worries about what happens if this continues to go on. Am I still going to have my job? Well, am I going to get my hours cut? so life happens. So for all of us now, COVID-19 has happened, but people, companies close and people lose their jobs and people get sick and insurance sometimes doesn't cover everything. So there's, bills happen. And so a lot of people are embarrassed by it, but really, I mean, things happen, and there's, you can't let embarrassment keep you from taking care of everything and moving forward. So when you come here for something like a bankruptcy or a debt management program, it is completely judgment free. We get it. There are counselors that have worked here that have had credit problems, and they've gone through the budgeting program or they've gone through the debt management program, and it changes people's lives for the better, because it helps people learn from their mistakes and learn not only, I mean, a lot of times it's not even a mistake, but learn how to prepare for the future. I mean, emergencies happen all the time. So you can lose your property, if you file a bankruptcy. If you have a home and you've got a bunch of equity in it and you're liquidating everything, they're probably going to take your home and use that to pay back your creditors if everything else isn't enough. You can still lose your home to foreclosure if it's like too far, you've been in default for 3 years or something. And the impact on your credit score can last 10 years. It's going to show up on your credit report for 10 years. After a certain number of years and it's still on there, maybe a creditor will look at your credit report and see that now, hey, this person is really managing their debt really well. They have a couple of credit cards, they've been paying on them regularly, their debt to income ratio is not that high, their utilization factor is really low. They'll look at that and then they'll see, oh, and 9 years ago, this person had a bankruptcy, but look how they're managing everything now. It'll stay on your credit report, but as time goes by and as you manage your income and your debt better, it won't matter as much. So bankruptcy can affect your availability to get future credit. Like I said, it's going to be on your credit report. You're not going to, if your credit score is going to go way down, and it will take time to build that credit score back up and make the creditors see that you're not as risky. So you may have to get a secured credit card after a little while, something that you put some money on that guarantees that you're going to be making the payments on your card. And that's one way that a lot of people start to build their credit back up after a bankruptcy. It can have an impact on your reputation. So like I said, life happens and things happen to people. And but when employers and like future employers and other people are looking at your credit report, they look and they see that you've got this bankruptcy judgment and you have zero, available credit because it's all been wiped out. It can cause, people to have, some kind of judgment about your credit worthiness and your ability and to pay your debt and, your, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Your the way you manage money. I'm sorry. The way you feel about money. Are you spending it and not saving anything? And are you a buy now, pay later kind of person? So it can show creditors that maybe you're not a person that they are ready to give credit to. So here's some of the options. Some of them are easier said than done, and some of them are easily said and easily done. And as long, you just need to talk to a certified credit counselor. So a lot of people try and go it on their own, self-regulation, repayment. They cut up all their credit cards and just start paying them back on their own, and that works for some people. You can consolidate all of your debt. Um, so you want to make sure that you are, if you're consolidating your debt, you're doing it with a reputable lender. You don't want to go to one of these, they have them on billboards or they're on late night TV. We can, we'll give you a loan for $10,000 and you can pay off all your debt. And they don't tell you that the interest rate is 35 or 40%, and they're going to take their money off the top. And, so make sure you use someone reputable. You can also use a home equity loan or refinance your home to, come up with the funds to pay off that debt. But again, you're creating more debt by doing that. You're creating different debt by doing that. Although a lot of times your interest rate from a home equity loan or a refinance is going to be a lot lower than these credit card bills that you're having, especially if you're already missing payments and you have a lot of late payments. Now they increase your insurance or your interest rate a lot of times with each late payment. Get a second job. And then, of course, the one big thing is to live on a budget. And that's what we really, really advocate for. I can tell you so I'm a veteran and I was in the Navy and I was about 20 years old. And I used to think that budgeting my money was calling my bank, because this was in the olden days when there were no cell phones. I would call my bank like every other day or something, and I would give them my account number, and I would tell my banker, I just want to know what my balance is. And they would tell me what my balance is, and that was, I knew how much I could spend. That's what I thought was budgeting my money. And then I called one day, and my account was overdrawn by like $330. That's about what I made a month. It's about what I took home a month as a E3 in the Navy. And so I started crying on the phone because I had no idea how I was going to pay it back. I didn't even know what it really meant to be negative in my account. So the banker asked me to come in. It was a credit union on base. And the guy sat down with me and he showed me a budgeting worksheet. It was pretty basic. And he helped me fill it out. And from that day on, I knew how to budget my money. Now, I didn't always budget my money because I got out of the Navy and I had a career, and then I quit my career to stay home and raise kids. And so it was, there were times when I felt like, oh, I got a handle on it. And then I had these kids and I didn't have a whole lot of money. So I needed to get a budgeting worksheet out and do that. But budgeting is different for everyone and not the same. Nobody is going to budget the same way. Not everyone uses the same type of system, but we can help you figure that out here. So if you can't do any of those things where you're financing. Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
I do have a question for you. And then maybe before you go too much further, it'd be a good one to ask now. So the question is regarding asset assessment. Are 401ks or other retirement assets included in the bankruptcy assessment process in the filing?
That's a really good question. And I feel like I knew the answer to that question. I think that I'm not certain. I'm going to ask about this and I'll find out, but I feel like those are not, I feel like there's one of them that is not included in a bankruptcy filing. And, but I can't tell you for certain. I am going to go back into my paperwork and see if I can find out tonight. And I will absolutely get back with you with that question too. That's a great question.
If you send me the responses to any of these questions, I'll make sure I get it out to this person. Okay.
Okay, perfect. I certainly will do that.
Okay,
I'll get it back to you. I'll get it back to you first thing in the morning.
Sounds
maybe even
great.
before then.
Okay.
Okay. So negotiated debt settlements are another way that you can start to pay back your credit, and you can do this on your own. You call the credit card company and you tell them, look, a lot of times this happens, I think, when people are in collections. I don't have, I owe X amount of money of dollars to my credit card, but I can only pay this amount. can we come up with an amount that you'll accept in order to consider my account not necessarily paid in full, but settled? And a lot of times a creditor will work, they might give you time to, 3 months. We're going to, we'll give you 75, you pay us 75% of what you owe us back, and you can do it in 3 months and we'll consider it settled. So you can do that on your own. I would suggest that if you're going to do that, you get it in writing, whether you have them send you an email, or you contact them with an email and say, this is what we discussed, this is what I understand. Can you, respond to this and let me know if I'm understanding this correctly before I make my first payment? Because it's happened where people have negotiated a debt settlement and then they just make that first payment and then they think they've paid it off, and they make 3 payments, and then another month goes by and they're getting a call from this collection agency, and they're saying, well, you still owe us X amount of dollars. It's not paid in full. I don't have any record of a settlement being made. So you want to make sure you get things in writing before you consider it a done deal. Then there are debt management programs, and there you can find debt management programs with other credit agencies, credit counseling agencies, but with an agency that is a not-for-profit, and we are not the only one. There are a lot of other not-for-profit credit counseling agencies out there. We are the only one in this Northern Illinois, but we have that debt management program. It is, remember I told you that there is very few things that we charge a fee for. One of them is the bankruptcy pre-filing class and the pre-discharge class. We charge for those, just a one fee of $50. The debt management program is something else that we do charge a fee for. So it's a very time-intensive program. We only have one staff member who manages this program. It's she takes care of all of it, and we you come up with a plan. We see all your income, we see all your expenses, we figure out, our counselors contact the credit card agencies and the lenders and negotiate a lower credit interest rate for you, possibly. Maybe they negotiate a lower monthly payment, so it makes it a little easier for you to actually pay all your debts on time. And then you will authorize a monthly withdrawal from your bank account. It goes to our trust department, and this person who is in charge of that disperses all the funds to all the creditors. So we charge a sliding scale fee for that. We have people who pay $35 a month for us to do that, but we also have people who pay $4 a month. So it depends on each unique situation, how much you will be charged to participate in a debt management program. But do not let the fear of how much it might cost stop you from coming in and meeting with a counselor, talking with them about your situation, letting them hear, your concerns and look at your paperwork and figure out if there's some way that, maybe you can do this without filing bankruptcy. So if you do decide to come to our agency to talk with a credit counselor, the initial thing is you will call our front office. They will tell you what documents need to be provided. You can email the documents, send them through the mail. We also have a drop box in front of our offices, so you can drop it off there, and then you can just call us and let us know that you've dropped it off, and we'll grab it out of there. And looks at the paperwork. They will call you. What are your life circumstances? What are your goals that you're hoping to accomplish? Do you want to get all your debt paid off? Are you trying to save to buy a house? Are you trying to pay off your student loans? Are you thinking about going to college? So are you trying to save up some money so you can do that and not have student loans? All of our counselors, like I said, are certified. A majority of our counselors have been here for over, I want to say over 6 years. We have counselors, one counselor's been here 24 years. We have a counselor's been here 13 years. Another counselor's been here 9. So our counselors really know what they're doing, and they're here to help you figure out and explore your options. And we love when we can work with people and help them get back on track with their money. And we have people who I go to, well, before COVID, I would go to resource fairs and other types of events, and someone would always come up and say, you know, we came to you, my husband and I, when we had only been married a couple of years, and we were really underwater with credit card debt. So you guys helped us figure it out. We got on the debt management plan, and we have never had a problem. We've been married, 26 years now or something. So it is life-changing when you learn the tools that you need. You learn the ways you can manage your credit, and you're given the tools that you need to do it. It can change your entire life. So we're here, and we can address any of your financial problems. Here's our contact information. We are, like I said, we are in Woodstock. We just moved just in February, right before COVID, we moved to a new office on Jackson Street. We were right by the water park, and we're here Monday through Friday, 9 to 4, and 9 to 5, and we're here Saturdays from 9 to noon. You can email us at info@illinoiscccs.org if you want to make an appointment, and you can also call 815-338-5757 and take a look at our website. We're in the process of revamping it and get it a little more updated, but take a look at our website. You can see testimonials, and you can see some of the things that we do. We also have a Facebook page that's really active. Every day or every other day at the very least, we post tips on ways that you can learn, you can save money, ways that you can budget your money, and we are always providing information on the most up-to-date programs and services that are available in our community. For just recently, we had the emergency rental assistance and the emergency mortgage assistance programs that rolled out. And we were an agency that was standing by. All of our counselors cleared their schedules and their calendars, and we were just taking phone calls and helping people apply for that program. So if you were someone who applied for that program and got funding, hopefully if you didn't do it on your own, you were able to do it with someone like CCCS. And we also collaborate with a lot of other community agencies. We interview and talk on Facebook Live with them all the time. So check out our Facebook page at CCCS of Northern Illinois. Follow us and like us, and you'll get notifications when some of those things are happening. So like I said before, we have grants and funders who help pay for the community. So one of the things that we do that our funders ask us to do for them is to give them information on how we've helped people, how many people have we helped, what ways have we helped them. So I've created this QR code. Well, I didn't create the QR code, but I've implemented this QR code to, if you hold your phone up to it, turn on your camera will grab it and direct you to a website. You'll click on that website, and it takes you right to a really short survey. You just need to, the only thing you need to put in is today's date, and I will know that it is from this workshop. You put in the date, and then you just need to answer 4 questions. Most of them are just a tap yes or no. That information goes directly to my email. It is completely anonymous. We don't ask for your name. There's no attaching to your email or anything like that. It's totally anonymous, but it helps us get information that we provide in grant reporting to our funders about how we help people. So I'll just leave that up for a minute, and hopefully it's something that you're able to do. And I think if you're watching this on your phone, I think Adam has shared the PDF file, or will share the PDF file that will come in an email to you, or you can ask for it. And this will show up on your email. You can still grab it in any kind of way. Even if you print it out, you can use this in a print version. So I really appreciate it. And then that is the end. If there are there any other questions? Hopefully there's a question I can answer.
I don't have any other questions. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll wrap up here. I'll follow up with an email, and that way if there are any other things that come up, we can communicate and do the best we can to connect people with the information that they need. So Liz and Donna, this is our first opportunity to work together, and it was a wonderful evening, and thank you so much for presenting. The recorded version of this will be posted within a couple of days. We typically do an email blast letting everybody know when we have a new posting. So we just let you know, we just did a great workshop on positive psychology, and that just got posted on our website within the past 24 hours. And I suspect we'll have this one posted probably by tomorrow or Friday morning at the latest. So with that, I'd like to once again thank Donna from Consumer CCCS of Northern Illinois.
I know it's a mouthful.
It's just easier to say it that way. And thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.